Eva and I'm one of the digital officers here at Education Scotland in the digital team, and we're really lucky this morning to be joined with Joanna Courtney from Call Scotland. Joanna's a specialist speech and language therapist, and this morning she's going to take us on a tour of the resources, particularly looking at accessible picture books for learners with print disabilities. So I'm just going to stop talking and hand over now to Joanna. So thanks so much, Joanna, for taking the time to join us this morning.
You're really welcome. Hi everyone. So I'm going to be talking a bit about the accessible picture books that we create to go along with the BookBug P1 family bag. And in particular, this year, we're really pleased to be including The Bongles and the Crafty Crows, which is Education Scotland's book about digital safety. So we're going to be looking at the range of resources available, and in particular looking at the resources related to the Bongles book. So as Eva said, I'm Joanna Courtney. I'm the specialist speech and language therapist at Call Scotland. For those of you who don't know who we are a National Centre for Excellence for Assistive Technology across Scotland. We have a whole range of roles in our remit, information and advice. So you can get in touch with us and ask us questions about assistive technology or communication technology for your learners. Pupil assessment and support. We have assistive technology loans and support. So we have a loan bank of equipment. So some of the equipment that I'm going to show you today, some of the simple communication technology, you can actually borrow for a short period for up to 2 months for an individual learner if you think it's something they could make use of. Professional learning, so we have a whole range of free webinars, weekly free webinars on a Wednesday, so there's one this afternoon, and a whole range of other short courses and 5-week course in communication, which is coming up at the end of October too. Research and development, so this is kind of part of this part of our job is creating national resources that teachers and health professionals can download and use in the classroom with their learners and in a clinical setting as well. And then strategic leadership, so we're very much involved in AAC, helping to sort of enhance AAC policy with the Scottish Government, and also assistive technology, digital exams, assistive technology throughout the curriculum, use of iPads in schools and all that kind of thing. So yeah, keeps us busy. But what we're going to be looking today, talking today about is in particular is AAC. So it's using other ways of communication, other methods of communication and resources, so that any learners who you have in your class who may have communication difficulties and who may find verbal speech difficult can use these resources to help them to join in with the stories, join in with shared reading, and really fully engage with the books that are included. As well as that, we found that the symbolised resources are really useful for just any learner at that sort of early level in terms of early literacy, because we have writing resources as well that accompany the books that match onto the communication resources, and also pupils who have EAL. So basically anybody in primary school can really be benefiting from having access to the symbolised resources. When it comes to the accessible books that I'm going to talk about, they are for learners with a print disability, so for learners who cannot cope with the hard copy of the book, whether they have a visual difficulty, learning difficulty, physical difficulty where they can't turn the page. So we'll say a bit more about that when it comes up. So AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. So it's a term that hopefully you're familiar with. Communication technology is another sort of name for it you might have heard. And this can be anything from simple picture boards all the way up to sophisticated communication aids, AAC apps. So it's basically anything that's going to help a person to communicate as effectively as possible in as many situations as possible. And that's the definition via Communication Matters, who's the UK organisation for AAC. And if you want to find out more generally about AAC, we have an AAC Scotland website, which is one of the mini sites from our main Call Scotland website. There are free AAC modules that staff can complete. There is an introduction to AAC, that's the first lot of modules, and then there's education modules as well. So there are 5 introductory modules and 8 AAC and education modules. These we've had about 15 to 20,000 people have completed these modules. They're particularly popular over COVID, as you can imagine, of people doing online learning at home. But they're freely available. All you have to do is go to the AAC Scotland website. And if I click on modules here, you'll see they're free. You don't have to log in or anything. You can just complete the modules at your own pace. That's the first 5, the introductory ones, and that's the AAC and education ones at the bottom there, and you get a certificate for your own professional development to keep at the end of those. There are lots of AAC videos and web links giving examples of different types of AAC downloads, so some simple communication boards, information about AAC events, and links to all the webinars that we've had for the past few years which have an AAC theme, so about communication technology in general. And then the AAC Scotland Network, that's a network of professionals across the country from different AAC centres who come together to organise events. So again, if you've got learners with communication difficulties, that's something to really keep an eye on. Okay. So evidence from ICANN about speech and language difficulties in the UK had shown that up to 50% of children entering school in the UK have some kind of communication, speech, language or communication difficulty. Now, this was just before COVID that this last sort of measure was taken. So as we know, this percentage has increased certainly by up to 20% in the past few years. So I'm sure you'll be noticing in the classroom that the number of learners coming in at that early level with communication difficulties is definitely increasing. So the resources that we're providing are hopefully going to be really useful for a lot of the learners who are coming in to your classes. And one of the main things that I always kind of stress that's really important when you're thinking about using accessible resources is about us, is about the onus being on us, being a good communication partner. It's not like we can just hand over a communication board or hand over a communication aid and expect the learner to just be able to use it. It's like music lessons, anything else. You don't just give someone a guitar and expect them to be able to go away and play something. You've got to actually teach them, model it, show them how it works. So very much we're thinking about AAC input leading to AAC output. And that basically means modeling, using the communication resources that I'm going to show you, you pointing to them and showing the children how to use them, modeling it yourself, because if you can't use it to help you communicate, then the children aren't going to learn how to use it either. So it's very much a two-way process, you being the communication partner, modeling and helping the child to learn how to use the resources. And that's a wee example there of a wee girl that was trying out the resources in a special school in Edinburgh with her speech and language therapist. And she was obviously using the Go Talk with the wee girl to show her where the messages were. And after a couple of readings of the story, she was able to independently be chatting about the story and answering questions about the story. So these are the kind of simple technology that we're going to be talking about, that the resources are available for. So ranging from these very simple kind of single message recorded devices, which again can be borrowed from our loan bank. We have a small, we don't have a huge number, but we have some that we can be loaned out to try before anybody would be purchasing them. So these would be where you would record in a single message, maybe a repetitive line from the story. But that's the kind of thing we make for the books, all the way up to something with a more of a choice of messages on it, like a Go Talk. So I'm going to talk a bit more about these Go Talks in a wee while, where you can actually record a whole series of messages on a symbol-based board. If you want to find out more about that, if you go to our assistive technology page, again, on the Symbols for All website, if you go to suggested equipment, there's a whole load of information about these different devices and where you can get them from, and that kind of information if you're interested for your pupils. Okay, so what's shared reading? What are we talking about here? What are these resources for? Well, shared reading is the interaction that occurs when a child and an adult read together. So it's very much an interaction that happens, alongside each other. It's not just reading the story and the child listening. It's really something that's co-occurring together. It can take place one-to-one, in pairs, small groups, or a whole class. But we're thinking more than paper books. We're thinking digital. We're thinking, what digital resources can we use to make it more engaging, so that children who have learning difficulties, who have communication difficulties, who have visual difficulties, can be joining in with the stories and really fully immersed in the story. And another reason to be thinking about shared reading in your classroom is that literacy and language and communication all go along together. So when you're reading, we all know this from books, we're getting an opportunity to learn about for literacy, language, communication, that shared experience. There's so much that you can get from picture books, and it demonstrates reading as a fun and enjoyable activity. So of course, we always want to join in with educational activities that are fun. So how do we do it? So there's a kind of principle about it called you follow the car. So what does that mean? It means we stop and we comment, ask, and respond. So this kind of goes along with modelling the resources. So us looking and seeing what the symbol resources have on them, commenting about the story, and speaking, we might say, oh, look at Bubba. He's got a funny outfit on, hasn't he? And then asking a question, who do you like? Which bongle do you like best? And then responding, oh, you like Bubba. Oh, you like Pet Robot. So comment, ask, and respond. So talking around the story using the symbol resources. And the idea is that the adult would be initially reading the story with the child. The learner becomes more familiar with the story, the images and the text. The adult guides the learners to participate using the symbol resources. And then step 4, the learner begins to join in and actually independently start to use the symbol resources. So this is just a few little hints about how to really use these kind of resources with pupils. So there's a lot of adults encouraging interaction, pausing, waiting, because as we know, a lot of learners who have a communication difficulty might also have a processing difficulty, comprehension difficulty, where we might need to just take it slow and wait for the response. I know myself from just being in a mainstream classroom, the speed and the pace that everything goes at. But for learners who have a communication difficulty or some kind of learning difficulty, just taking it slowly, pausing and waiting, modelling the use of the AAC, and responding to any form of communication to attribute meaning. So that means whatever the child's trying to communicate, if they're saying, if they're going, hooray, hooray, and it's not the right time of the story, maybe, that doesn't matter. If they're joining in, we give them that positive reinforcement, and you say, yeah, that was a good bit, or that was exciting, wasn't it? Do you think that was exciting? So you're always, whatever they're communicating with the resources, you always give a positive feedback and attribute meaning to what they've said to encourage them to keep on communicating. And connecting the story to personal experiences of the learner. So with something like the bongles, when you're talking about computer safety and passwords, thinking about things that you might like to keep safe at home. What have you got that's special to you, and how do you keep it safe? How do you protect it, from your brothers and sisters, or hide it away? So connecting a story to personal experiences, which is another thing that picture books are just absolutely perfect for. There's always a message, there's always feelings that have been involved, there's always something you can relate to from the child's real life. So we're encouraging the learner to join in, to say turn the page, to even something like that, turn the page. I was in an additional support needs base last week using the Bongles resources. And there was one boy that they said he probably won't join in. He'll just walk off and not want to be involved in it. He'll think it's it's not his thing. And I kind of said, oh, do you think he'd like it if he was kind of had a role of responsibility in the story, that it was his job? And they went, maybe. Anyway, so his job was simply to turn the page. I wouldn't turn the page on the smartboard until he told me to do it. And he sat for the whole story, joined in, absolutely loved it. And it was his turn. Everyone was looking at him, pressed this Big Mac to say, turn the page. And he joined in for the whole story. And they were kind of saying he would never sit through a story usually. So just having that engagement, having a simple tool for someone to really have that role in the story, it can make a huge difference to actually engaging with an activity. So he was leading the interactions basically, and he was verbal. He was speaking a verbal child. So he was chatting away about the story, and I was asking him extra questions about what was going on in the story because he was quite able. But the point was that just using that resource for him to have that job just helped keep him engaged for the whole book. So what kind of messages have we got? So we've got these simple printable resources which have got things like repetitive lines for the story. So this is from one from a few years back called Mouse's First Night at Moonlight School. So where are you? There he is. Let's count to 10 when they're playing hide and seek and the mouse is hiding from Miss Moon. So there are simple recorded simple printable buttons for these recorded messages, which I'll show you for the bongles in a wee minute. And then there's also, so we're going along with this story here, coming up to Halloween soon, Miss Moon's First Night at Moonlight School. So we also have these Go Talk overlays, which are printable resources that you can just print out, laminate, and just use by pointing to them. So this is the one for the bongles, but also they will go into a Go Talk device and they can be recorded. So you have the speech recorded messages behind the buttons as well, which is really motivating for children to join in when they actually have the speech recorded behind it too. So the idea is this is an eye gaze learner here. So he's got the book of Miss Moon up on his stand there. It's a music stand. And then you don't have to be using the symbol resources as they are. You can cut them up and use them, you know, the symbols separately as well. So he has them put on this E-Tran frame. So they're nicely spread out so that he can look with his eyes and point to answer questions about the characters. So he'd look at Miss Moon if he's talking about her, or look at Mouse and look at hiding. So he could say things like Mouse is hiding, Miss Moon cannot find Mouse. So he can put together the words by looking at them in the order he wants to say them. So these are the ready-made templates that I'm talking about for the Go Talk 9 device. And we've been doing this for almost 13 years now. We've been doing this. So there is a huge library of resources, and I'm going to show you where you can get all the resources as well for all the previous years. So as well as this year's resources for the books coming out in November for National Book Week, all the previous 13 years worth of books and resources are all available for you to download free of charge and use with your learners. So there's quite an extensive accessible library there. So I'm just going to show you the symbol resources from here. So this is our BookBug page. So from Symbols for All, which again is a mini site for our main Call Scotland website. This is the BookBug section. So if we go to BookBug resources here, it tells you a little bit about what's available. So as we know, BookBug, Scottish Book Trust's early years programme that aims to help children develop a love of reading. And there have been in previous years 3 books included in the bag, but very pleased to hear that this year, the past couple of years, but for this year there are 4 free bags for every child in Scotland, including the Bongles book. So we, as well as for the BookBug P1 family bag, we also make accessible resources for the Explorer bag, which all the nursery children get when they're age 3 as well. So we don't make accessible books for those, but we make all the symbols for them. So there's something to look out for in the springtime when the BookBug Explorer bags come out too. So if I just go down here, I'll just show you. So Primary 1 family bag symbol resources. So if I go in here, 2024, and this is where you'll find all the resources for this year. So I come down here. So it tells you the 4 books that are going to be in the bag. What do the symbol resources consist of? This will just give you a bit of information about all the different resources. These Go Talk overlays, Big Mac switch tops for repetitive lines, the vocabulary sheets to go with each board, so that it helps you know the vocabulary that's to go along with the story and to be recorded. A symbolised teaching activity. So Scottish Book Trust and Education Scotland produce ideas for teaching activities, and we take one of the activities for each book and adapt it so it's an accessible version of the teaching activity. So there'll be a symbol board to go with that activity and a vocabulary sheet, which I'll show you as well, to explain what the activity is. So there's one of those for each book in the bag as well. And then there's boards for Sounding Board on the iPad. So some of you might have heard of Sounding Board. It's a free communication app, a very simple communication app. So it's a case of recording, making a communication board and recording messages behind it. So you can have anything from kind of 1 to 20 buttons. And again, I'm going to show you that when we move on to have a look at the resources in a bit more detail. But it's free and it's on. There are several local authorities that we go out to who have it on their app store. So it means that their iPads, if you're in a school and you know that as a learner that could be making use of the resources, they can just download Sounding Board onto their iPads and then download the resources onto their iPad to use along with the stories. Clicker sets. So for those of you who use Clicker, as well as all the communication resources, we also make corresponding writing resources. So it means that the children can talk about the story and then they can go away and write about the story. And these are scaffolded communication and writing resources to give them the words that are provided for them. And then they can have a model sentence with jumbled up sentences underneath, that kind of activity, and also a book review so they can say what they liked about the story. And then the other resources that we make are the grid set for grade 3. So when I show you the books, I'll show you the iGaze version of the book. But also we make writing resources that are iGaze enabled for learners who have complex physical access needs and who use grid 3 software, which is probably the most commonly used software for iGaze in Scotland. So we make writing resources to go for that software as well, so that the teachers can download those and put them on their iGaze device, and they can be writing doing their writing along with everybody else in the classroom. And I was in a school last week seeing a boy who's in a mainstream school who's been using the BookBug iGaze accessible resources and joining in and doing his writing activities along with the other members of the class who are writing about the story. So that was really nice to see. Okay, so I'm going to go back to here. So let's have a little look at the resources. So I'll go to Family Bag. So we'll concentrate on the bongles. So there's all the resources for 10 dogs. There's Bongles and the Crafty Crows, The Eyebrows of Doom, quickest bedtime story ever, shared reading and voting, so you can vote and talk about what's your favourite story and why you liked it. And then there are quick guides, so that's kind of a bit of information of how to use the resources, as I was sort of mentioning earlier about turn taking and modelling and that kind of thing. There's a bit more information in those quick guides about that. And then I'll talk about the further downloads later about the books in the bookshelf. So let's have a wee look at the Bongles and the Crafty Crows. So the Big Mac symbols here, we've got Let's Dance and Wahoo, which is the alarm sound. So you can have lots of fun recording an alarm sound on your single message device. So and Let's Dance for the end when they have the party at the end where they all celebrate. And then the second page there has got hooray. So anytime anything goes right in the story or something good happens, somebody can be pressing their button and saying hooray to join in with the story, and also turn the page. So as I said, really important to have that turn the page, somebody kind of involved in having that control over the story, and it really, really helps with engagement. So there's a turn the page for every single one of the books. Little step symbols, they're just the same, but it's just a smaller size for children who might have the smaller size device. And then I'll have a wee look at the overlay. So that's the GoTaught9 overlay. So this, again, these are just printable PDFs. So we've made them in the symbol software, and then it's just a case of printing them out. And we get the images from the publishers for the characters that we need from the books as well, which is always really nice. So here, this is what we've got on the Bongles ones. We've got Let's Dance, Wahoo, Hooray, and then we've got Bubba, Crow, Pet Robot, So we've got some of the characters, and then we've got some core words to talk about the story, about sleeping, about stealing from the crates, and then a not, so we can have negative comments about the story, and then clever and passcode. And then I'm going to, in a wee minute, I'm going to actually show you how you might use that to put the sentences together. Okay, and then we've got the vocab sheet to go with that. So that kind of tells you exactly what you're recording on the sheet to go with it. And then there's the teacher activity as well. So the teacher pack activity here. So this is the activity is talking about what's your treasure? What do you have a treasure at home that's really important to you, and how do you keep it safe? So this board is just to help kind of scaffold that conversation. And again, even if it's not a child with a communication difficulty, just having those visual prompts to kind of scaffold the conversation about the story can be really useful. So as I said, when I was in this base last week, I just had this up on the board, just up on the smart board. I just kind of downloaded the PDF and just had it up there, and we just kind of used it. We're talking about, do you have a passcode? Do you have a lock on things at home, or do you put them in a drawer or somewhere else? And just having those things to look at helped them kind of spark off thoughts about their own, treasures at home. It was really, really interesting to hear all the kind of things that they have as a treasure and where they hide them. And some of them couldn't hide them because their brother always tries to get in under their bed and get the box that they hide things in. And we had a really good chat about it using the board as a prompt.
That sounds fun, Joanna. I remember having similar discussions with a group of children at a sort of local community group, and they all started disclosing their parents' passwords. So I had to very quickly stop that conversation and have the chat about passwords. We keep them safe to protect our bits and pieces. But yeah, you never know where the conversation's going to go.
I know. It did go a bit sort of off-piste a couple of times, but anyway. But yeah, you some really funny and things like somebody had a fossil that was really important to them, and they'd found it on a beach, and there was this you could tell it was really his treasure, and he had to kind of sometimes move it because someone, his brother would find it where it was, and he had to find a new spot for him. It's just something that really resonates, I think, with children about having a treasure.
Then they can relate to something that is special to them, and they understand why the bongos would then want to keep their treasures safe. Yeah,
exactly. No, it was really good in that sense. Yeah. So the vocab sheet just gives you kind of an idea of how that's, what that teacher activity involves. So we all have special things. Do you have a secret place or a container? And again, just giving that idea that you might want to give some more prompts for children, particularly if they have additional support needs, and get some extra symbols or picture cards or things to help with that, to talk about it. But yeah, we had a really good chat about that. And then there's the clicker sentences. I'll show you that when you go into the iPad, because it's easier to show you on Clicker Writer. And when I'm showing you the rest of the resources, that's the writing resources to go along with them. So all those resources are there. And just while I'm here, I'll just show you that underneath, when it says Primary 1 Family Bag Previous Years, if you click on there, then all the resources from previous years all the way back, you can go through. So if you have any of these books in your classroom or under your bed, you can go back, and all the same resources are available for all those books from past years as well. So there's a whole back catalogue there, and exactly the same. You can just print them off or download them into Sounding Board. And the other thing, we'll wait till I'll wait and show you the books in a minute. Okay, so I'll just go back here. Okay, so symbol resources. So here's a few pictures of children using the resources out and about. So that's the down the bottom left there is somebody using the PowerPoint version up on a smart board, and I've set that up with a switch interface so that the young man there who's just beside me, he to turn the page, he's just doing a left click using the switch, and that's how the PowerPoints are set. So when you press the switch, you do a left click and it turns the page of the book, and then it's read out. So that's him using the PowerPoint version. That young man at the top there is using the repetitive line from Arlo, the lion who didn't sleep. So I think that's the yawn. He's doing the big yawn as they all fall asleep. And then he's using the Go Talk version of the board to go along with the story. And then that young man at the bottom right is using the eye gaze version, the grid 3 version of Stuck Inside. So the way that those work, which I'll show you in a minute, is that he can, the story's read out, you can see where his eyes are looking when he's looking around the page, because you have an eye gaze dot, so you can see where the learner's looking and respond to where they're looking on the page, which is really nice. So if he looks at the bike, you can say, oh yeah, look at the bike, have you got a bike? And you can get that conversation going and respond to where they're looking. And then also you've got the communication messages for him joining in with the story, and he can also go to the full communication board and chat about the story and answer questions too. This is myself and my colleague Kirstine went out to try out the resources in a school that she used to work in West Lothian. So this is just a mainstream primary 1 class, and we just went in and took the resources in. And of course, you have to make sure you've got something for everybody, because everyone wants to have something to use. So a lot of these children were verbal children, but as you can see, they still absolutely love using the resources and having buttons to press and just helping with the engagement. Again, the teacher kind of said usually they wouldn't have sat for that whole story, but everyone sat for the whole thing because they had a job, they had something to do in the story. So wee girl using the sounding board there, so they had iPads in their classroom, so I had the sounding boards on my iPad. I could just airdrop them to the classroom iPad so they could just use them straight away. And then we had a couple of Go Talks with us and Big Macs for turn the page and things so they could join in. But the teacher really liked the fact that it was something that she could just put on their iPads and use straight away. People are always looking for resources that are ready made, that are easy to use on their devices. And then this learner was using the hard copy of the book because he just preferred that. And that's why it's really important to have the hard copies of the books around in class as well. People don't always want to be doing everything digitally. And that's the nice thing. There's such a range of resources you can kind of pick and choose depending on the situation. So somebody might be using the sounding board on the iPad, but with the hard copy of the book if they respond better to that. Or they might be using the Go Talk and the hard copy of the book as well. And another thing that you can do, we tend to do, and I won't be able to see this so well, but with the hard copy of the books, that's my book, my Bongles book, you can print out the Go Talk overlay and just stick it, laminate it and have it stuck in the back of the book. So it's just a case of flipping it out. And then when you're talking about the story, you can just you have the board to refer to and point to the symbols as you go along. So just a really simple way of making your book accessible. Print it out, laminate it, and just have it as a kind of flip page at the back of the hard copy of the book. And then that's a couple of weeks ago. I was up in Perth and Kinross, and this young lady was, this is actually part of an assessment. And that's another great thing about the resources, is that speech and language therapists and professionals can use them as a resource to assess pupils in terms of their access skills and understanding as well. So she's using the sounding board version of The Quickest Bedtime Story, and then she's using the Keynote, the iPad book version, which is the same as the PowerPoint, but you just open it and on your iPad and open it in Keynote, and it plays exactly the same way with the turn the pages. And she's reading the book there as well on the iPad, so you can see she's really enjoying being able to do that herself. So Sounding Board, this is the app that I'm going to show you. We're going to go over onto the iPad in a minute, and I'm going to show you all the resources on there. But Sounding Board is a really great app. It's free. The other nice thing about it is a lot of parents, if they have an iPhone or an iPad, they can just download the app. It's free, and you can airdrop the boards to them, or they can just go on the website themselves, go on Symbols for All, look at which books they have, and then download the sounding boards and use them at home as well. So again, it's a resource that's really easy for parents and families to use as well. So I'm going to do a wee demo here of just thinking about the Bongles book and how you would use the board along with it. So this is the part where they're grabbing their crates because they don't want anything to get stolen, and thinking what we're going to do about this. And of course, Bubba creates a passcode. So if you're reading that page with a learner and you had your board, you'd be maybe saying, oh, you do not want them to steal the crates. And what's going to happen? Oh, Baba, he's going to do something. He's going to make a clever passcode. So you'd be pointing to those and saying those things along with what's happening in the story. Or you might say, when you find out the number, when he picks 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's obviously a bit of a rubbish passcode, you could say, oh, that's not a clever passcode. So you could point to not and clever and passcode and say, no, that wasn't very good, was it? And then he makes a clever passcode and you would say, hooray, hooray, that was a good passcode. And of course, somebody's got to have the job of having the alarm on their Big Mac so they can set the alarm off when it comes to that point in the story. So it's a really nice story for bringing in all those elements as well and joining in. And the other nice thing when I was doing this last week was that the teacher, they like having props to go along with the story. So she'd done a quick run around, found a couple of scarves, found some cups and a box that we pretended was the crate. So everyone kind of took something out and had a hat on or had a glass, and we had a bird and we pretended the bird had come down and stolen the scarves, and mayhem ensued, obviously. But just having a few props, just thinking, look at the story, let's grab a few things that will go along with the story as well. And again, that's just another way to keep everyone interested in the story if they get their hat stolen or their scarf stolen. And the accessible books, again, the digital versions of the books, that's the other side of it. So that we make Keynote switch prompt. So that's for the iPad, and it's exactly the same as the PowerPoint switch prompt. And I'm going to show you when I move over to my iPad in a minute of how those work. And the recorded narration switch prompt, it's called that. They both have recorded narration, but that one is more independently navigated. So it means that you can change the pace at which the page turns, whereas the switch prompt one is timed, and it will turn the page and give you the prompt to turn the page at a certain point after the page has been read. So the other one, the guided narration, the narrated one, is more for someone who's independently navigating the book, or if you're showing it on the smartboard and you want to be able to control the speed at which the story is read. So I used that one last week when I was doing it with a large group because I wanted to be able to chat to them and get them to join in and then turn the page when I was ready. And this is a grid 3. So this is a grid 3 version of Bongles. So these are the alternative access options: touch, eye gaze, and switch that you can use with grid 3. So that's how each page looks. You've got the page from the story. You've got the repetitive lines that they can join in and look at to join in with the story at those points. And again, they can be saying some of those things. It doesn't have to be exactly the right point in the story. They might just say, oh, the alarm went off and they all took flight and it's hooray, they managed to get away, or looking at the alarm and setting the alarm off. Then they can listen again, they can bookmark the page and come back, and they can also put the eye gaze rest on, which means when they look at that button, it rests the eye gaze and they can look around the page without accidentally activating something. So that can be really handy for learners. And also the communication partner quite often would maybe pop the rest on and then say, right, let's have a look at the page, look what's going on, give them time to respond and to comment, and then say, okay, I'm going to turn the rest off, put it off, and then off they go. And they can make their choices. And obviously turning the page as well. Okay, so I'm going to move over to my iPad and show you some of these things and how they look. Let's just make sure I do the right thing here. What I'm going to do to there actually. My iPad up. Okay, and I'm going to go.
While you're doing that, Joanna, I am just downloading sounding board here in the back, and of course the bongles board to bring into that as well. So I'm going to have a little play around with that in my professional development time later on this week, that's for sure.
Great. Okay, so this. Oh, hang on a second. Do you know what? This did this earlier. The mirroring software that I'm using kind of decided to.
There can be quite a lag with it sometimes.
I know. Hang on a second. I might have to.
So sounding board isn't something that I've used before.
Okay.
but I can, I can see lots of different situations that this would become, really useful and just, support that engagement and comprehension of the story.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, I mean, we just use this one for
Baba.
There we go.
Sleep.
Shut it down, put it back on again, the usual. I mean, you could put anything on here, obviously. I mean, some places just use it for choices of activities or foods or, people who they're going to choose to do an activity with. So you can put anything on the boards, but we use it because, it's nice and easy and free for people to download. So how it looks when you go into Sounding Board is you have all your boards sat there. So I've got a whole range of things that I've used for various things. And then when you go on, what you would want to do is you'd want to go to Symbols for All. So if I go to Symbols for All and I go to BookBug resources, and the easiest way to do it is on the device that you're going to be using it on. So if I go to Book Family Bag here, and I go down and I want my Bongles sounding boards, you can see Sounding Board app storyboard. So I press that, it says, do you want to download? And I say download. And then up at the top, the little sort of bouncing arrow up the top there, I can see that it's there. Now, if I just go now to my files, and I'll just look for the ones that I've downloaded recently. And where's my Bongles? Recents. There you go, recents actually. Go to my recents, and then you can see that P1 bag bongles.able. That's the file extension at the end. So as long as I've got Sounding Board on my iPad, so I have to make sure I've gone to the App Store and downloaded it first. Then when I open it up, there it just pops. I've got 2 copies of it now. And then I go in, and that's it, already recorded, ready to use with the story.
Not. Clever.
No, it's not clever.
Not. Clever. Passcode.
Not a clever passcode.
Turn the page.
And then turn the page. So you've got the same as you got on the GoTalk printable overlays to talk about the story, answer questions.
Wow.
Set off the alarm, etc. But you've also got either again if you want to hear another part of the story again.
Turn the page.
Or turn the page to kind of give that prompt that it's time to turn the page. So that's the sounding board. So there's the sounding board for all the other books as well. So there's the Eyebrows of Doom, Quickest Bedtime Story. So you can see it's the same exactly the same layout as the printable overlay, except you've got it all recorded, ready to go behind you. You've got images from the story, from the book as well. Quickest Bedtime Story, and then there's the shared reading. So again, this can be used with any story. So if you download the shared reading board for Sounding Board, that could be used with any book. So obviously, children have got their favourite books in the classroom and things as well. It's not just the BookBug books you might want to be using. So again, there's a printable overlay for that, which you can just have and stick in the back of the book to refer to, and also the Sounding Board. So this is just general joining in with a story, shared reading type vocabulary.
Turn the page. Again. Funny. Sad. I don't like. Who's that? What's that? Oh no.
So kind of general communication around a story. So that could be used with any story at all. And then there's the voting page. So when this was the BookBug Picture Book Prize books, that's what it used to be. The books were formed, the shortlist for that. We had created all these voting resources, but we've had feedback that that's still a nice classroom activity, even though there's not a BookBug Prize anymore. It's still a really nice activity to talk about the story and what you liked about the stories and what your favourite is. So they can say things like,
I like the story. 10 dogs.
So I like the story of 10 dogs, or
I don't like the pictures. The Eyebrows of Doom.
You don't like the pictures of the Eyebrows of Doom. Okay, which one's your favourite then?
I like the Bongles and the Crafty Crows. The best.
You go, and then you can kind of vote for their favourite. So that's the sounding board. So as I say, free, you can airdrop them really easily as well, which is nice. So if I go to edit and I choose my Bongles board and I want to just send it to someone to airdrop to their iPhone or whatever, I just go export board, airdrop, And then as long as they've got sounding board on theirs, airdrop it to them, they do the same thing, open up the file, and it goes into sounding board on their phone as well. So really, really easy for sharing too. Okay, so that's the sounding board, and I've showed you all the symbol resources. So I'll show you the book side of things now. So if I go and show you the Keynote version of the book, so I go into Keynote, which is basically PowerPoint on an iPad, and here's one I've downloaded earlier. Go back to my presentation. So it just appears when I'll show you where to get the books from. And it just appears in your Keynote presentation. So that's the 4 books. So if I open up the Bongles one, and I'll just show you how it's laid out. And this is exactly the same as it's laid out for the PowerPoint when I was saying about if you have a PowerPoint on their smartboard as well with using a switch or using the touchscreen to turn the page. So you've got the page of the book, and then in between each page there's this switch prompt. So the recording, the page is recorded, the narration, there's a wee bit of a gap, and then the switch prompt comes up to prompt the person to turn the page and move it on to the next one. So the idea about that is that you're not going to have someone racing through the book at 100 miles an hour. You're actually controlling that pace and saying, oh, I've got to turn the page, and again giving them that role to turn the page and move the book on. So if I just go, I'll miss out some of the sort of starter introductory pages here and just go in here. So you get the kind of ding. So again, for someone with a visual difficulty, they can hear that that's their prompt to turn the page.
On a planet far, far away, the night was about to make way for the day.
So you have the page, and then you get this prompt, and then the child will touch the screen to move it on.
The Bongles were sleeping, dreaming away, when 3 wooden crates drifted into their bay.
The nice thing is, if I touch the page while it's being read, nothing will happen.
One full of clothes, dresses and ties.
So I'm touching it, nothing's happening while it's being read. I've got to wait for the prompt.
Jessie
And then I'm
was
moving
pleased.
on to the
She
next
loved
page
her
of
new
the story.
clothes, but she'd better beware, because so did the crows. They dived right in, got some pants and a shoe, flapped their wings, and off they flew.
So you might have somebody using the book on the iPad, but then maybe using the printable board along with it. You don't have to, it doesn't have to all be digital. You could be reading the book on there, but then they could be pointing using the symbol board, printable symbol board to go with it. Because obviously that's, that's all free. They can just download the book and download the symbol board. So you can use any combination that you want that works for the learner.
The twins, meanwhile, stared.
It will come out the story. So that's the book. So where do we get the books from? So I'll just go back here. So I was showing you that's where they get the symbol resources from. The easiest way to find the books is to go down to the bottom, and then you've got further downloads, BookBug Books. So if I just go to BookBug Books, it'll now take me to Books for All, which is our database of accessible versions of textbooks and other books, and where we host all the BookBug Scottish Book Trust books. So there's a Book Trust tab at the top of Books for All, and all you have to do is to create a free account. So if you go to register, create a free account with your work email, so that and then you get sent back a login details, and that's it. You should get it back the same day. Robert, through the next room, he sets it up as they come in. So if I go back to Book Trust, so if you go to the book that you want, so this is this year's books. If I go to the Bongles, the Crafty Crows, and that's all the different versions that are available. So the for iPad, that software that I showed you for the eye gaze accessible one, it's also available for the iPad for touch as well, but that's a paid for software, so it's a pretty specialised software. The other versions, you're all free, just software that you'll have in school. So PowerPoint recorded narration, that's the one I said that also has a bit more, you have more control over the speed that you're changing the page. And then the PowerPoint switch prompt is the one like same as the Keynote, where you have that timed sort of switch prompt page coming up between each page. So all I would do is I would say I want Bongles and the Crafty Crows. I'm not logged in just now because I don't want to, I'm not going to type in my login details. But if I was logged in, then I would just download the book And again, it goes into my downloads, and then I just press it and open it in Keynote. Or you can also send a link to a parent. So when you're logged in, you either download it or you can create a link to share. So that's how you would share it with a parent if they wanted to use it at home. Because of the copyright rules and things, we have to have a sort of traceable either education or a professional email account that it's traced back to, because there have been issues in the past with copyright and people putting books up on the internet and things, and it's breached copyright agreements, and there's been issues around that. So that's the way of sharing it with a parent if you wanted to do that, and then it's kind of watermarked and linked back to the person that downloaded it. So it means it's not going to get shared illegally, basically. So that's where you download the books from Books for All. And when I just go back home there and just show you, so that's this year's books. But again, when I showed you the kind of archive of all the symbol resources from previous years, if you go down here, browse accessible copies from previous years and go in there, then that's all those books that correspond to all the symbol resources on Symbols for All, books on Books for All. So that's all the books from the previous years. So my first book of Sea Creatures, if you go in there, that's all the same, all the different versions for Sea Creatures. And actually that's coming up with Woodland Animals and all the other ones as well, all those other Zoe Ingram ones. So you just have to go back, just have to go to browse copies from previous years, and there's all the books there for you to download for learners who have a print disability. And that part of it is only available for learners in Scotland. So Symbol side of it, Symbol resources, anyone in the world can download them and use them with the books, just buy the books. But the books on Books for All, that's only for educators and for learners in Scotland due to copyright side of things. So that's exclusively a Scottish resource. And if I just go back to Symbols for All, and just show you that another really nice resource of a really good way of kind of looking at everything that's available. If I go to BookBug Family Bag, and then down the bottom again, if I go to BookBug Digital Bookshelf Poster. So BookBug Books took us to Books for All to download the books, but also there's this BookBug Digital Bookshelf Poster, and if you download that poster, that's a PDF with clickable links to all the books from previous years as well. So that's a really nice, lots of places print that out and have it up in their nursery or their classroom. And then if you want, say, Arlo, you would just click on the little tab, and that takes you to the version on Books for All directly to download. So it's got a little kind of key to show you what the books are up here on the right. So there's a PowerPoint switch prompt, Keynote, Grid for iPad, etc. And you can see what versions we have for the different books. So this goes so far back. The top row, there's not so many versions of those because that was when we were just starting out. But the last few years, there's obviously all the different versions of the books available that you can download. So that's a good kind of landing page, sort of to get an idea of what books are available. And you'll obviously, for the Halloween coming up, you've got Moonlight School, you've got I Am Bat. That's a good one. Scaredy Bat's a good one for this time of year. So you can really have a look around, see what's available and plan what you're going to be doing in the classroom. And the last thing I'm going to show you, so that's the book symbol resources. I'll just show you, because we haven't looked at this. So if I go to Clicker Writer, so this is these are the clicker resources. So I've downloaded the clicker resources onto my iPad here. So let's just go, hang on a second. So I'll just go my files, Clicker Writer. I've got. So when you download them from the website, you download them onto your iPad and then you put them in the Clicker Writer folder, and that's how you would find them. And if you have Clicker 8 on your laptop, you do the same. You download them and put them in your Clicker folder. So if I go in here and then I find my bongles, so this is my bongle sentence set. So I need to delete what I've got in Clicker. So there are 10 sentences to go with each book. So these map onto the communication boards. So the things you can say on the communication board, I've then made them into sentence sets so that they're actually, proper grammatically correct sentences you can then produce from the communication boards. So you can listen.
The crows steal from the crate.
And then there's a jumbled up sentence at the bottom there, and I can say
The crows steal from the crates. The crows steal from the crates.
I can also listen to the word before I choose it and decide if it's the right one before I put it in. You can also go to the keyboard and actually be typing things out as well. And then when I swipe, I get my next one. So Pet Robot has a clever plan. So we use just symbols and not the book images for these resources, because we're not allowed to do that to put them into other software like that. So then the next one I can do return, and is my next.
Pet Robot has a clever plan.
You can go in, Pet Robot has a clever plan, and put the words in the right order. If any of you know Clicker, you can go in and change that. You can change how you want the sentences set up. You can go into guided order, for example. If I go into guided order for that one, it means it'll only let me press the words in the right order. So at a very early level where you're really modelling the sentence building,
Pet
it'll guide you.
Robot has a clever plan. Pet Robot has a clever plan.
And so on and so forth. And then you go through. So that's just changed that setting for that one. You can go in and change it for the whole sentence set. So there's all the crows cannot steal the passcode, make a clever passcode, cannot steal the passcode, set off the alarm. So again, you've got those same words that you're getting that consolidation of the words, but in different sentences talking about the story. And then the other one is the book review. So the bongles is the connect set. So that's the connect sets. This is a bit more multiple choice. So things like,
this book is about not sharing your passcode and making your passcode hard for others to guess.
and you can flick along and say,
In the
and you
story,
can decide what you want to choose from there.
the bongles found things they liked,
Or did they?
stored things they liked in crates.
There we go. For that.
Stored things they liked in crates.
So this is a bit more, you've got a few more conjunctions. You can start doing a bit more sentence buildings, a bit more multiple choice there for the sort of next level up. Okay, so that's the writing, the Clicker resources as well. So what I'm just going to quickly nip back to my PowerPoint to finish off. Yeah, so that's us basically. That's the end of my presentation. But yep, so sounding board, Keynote for the iPad, and then you've got your PowerPoint resources, and you've got your grid resources for learners who have more complex physical access difficulties. So hopefully lots to go and explore with your learners. Okay, thanks everyone. And if you have any questions, then I'm just going to stop sharing now, and I think Eva's going to stop the recording, and please feel free to ask any questions. Thanks you.
So much, Joanna. I'm not sure how you got through all of that in the hour, and I know I didn't appreciate myself just the extent of resources that are there in the resource bank on the site for the various devices and the various formats. So there's a huge amount of work going in behind the scenes there, and we really appreciate you taking the time to
welcome.
share.